We are on.
Nicholas, how are you today?
Fantastic. What about you, Matt?
I'm wonderful, wonderful. I know it's been a few days, but the Super Bowl was last Sunday. I know you were glued. You were on your couch and glued to your television. All the different news coming out of the Super Bowl. Who do you think was the big media winner?
Oh, I think it was Taylor Swift, to be frank with you.
You're right. You're probably right.
Yeah, I was actually reading that she got 44 seconds of airtime during the Super Bowl, and when you think that what a traditional ad for 30 seconds is what 7 million, something like that. That's a
6.5 to 7 million, right?
yeah, that's a 3 million gift right there.
So crazy. I was thinking about all the commercials and the Dunkin' Donuts and all the big ad spend. But you're right. Taylor Swift being in the stands was the biggest ad winner of the day. So crazy.
That's crazy. All right, let's go on. Hi everyone, my name is Nico. I'm the co-founder of Extremely, and I'm so excited to be here on the Vcommerce Show, the curated top news of the video commerce space. I am with my great friend Matt from E6 Marketing, and we are both excited about this show. So why, Matt, don't you take it over and tell us why we're here?
Yeah, welcome to the Vcommerce Show. The Vcommerce Show is a live chat podcast discussing today's big topics related to video commerce. Video commerce is a storytelling platform that was created over 50 years ago through DRTV and infomercials, transformed into HSN and QVC, and now has evolved into engaging direct response commerce through your television, computer, tablets, and phone. So this podcast is a conversation where hopefully you'll learn a few things, maybe laugh about a couple of things, and hopefully will entertain you for the short time we're with you today. So Nicholas, I know it's a big topic for you, and it's always a big topic for me, but Super Bowl was on Sunday, and it's such a big thing in the U.S. There's so many takeaways from the game, not just the fact that it was an amazing football game, went into overtime. The Kansas City Chiefs beat the San Francisco 49ers in dramatic fashion, but so many crazy stories came out of it. The longest game ever, the Kansas City dynasty, they won three out of their last five, and the Taylor Swift thing. You just mentioned that Taylor Swift helped NFL viewership go up with young girls up 11%, the 18 to 24 category up 24%. So
Crazy.
Taylor Swift was the biggest, as you said, the biggest winner on the Super Bowl night, but probably the biggest story from a media buy perspective in the NFL all season. So it was the most viewed game, actually the most viewed TV event ever, with 123.4 million viewers across all platforms, which was up 7% year over year. $700 million spent in ad revenue that CBS earned on the day. Insane.
Crazy. It's fun. I mean, I will say, my daughter, she's 6. I mean, one of them, she's 6, and she was constantly asking when was the game gonna start, because all she cared about was she wanted to see Taylor Swift in the audience. Like crazy, right? Like
Yeah. It changed so much. I mean, she changed so much. I mean, I can't even consider diving in. We'd have a 5-hour podcast to talk about the Taylor Swift effect across media and across social platforms. But she was a big part of it.
Yeah.
And the game being so big, the NFL is just a huge like train going downhill. It's the business of the NFL is immense, and then Taylor Swift being the biggest, most popular, successful person in the world on top of it, it's a crazy thing. I don't know if they'll be able to. 123.4 million viewers. I'm not sure they'll ever be able to top that.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that was very surprising to me, and I don't know if you noticed that, but basically the call to action that most of those had, right? It's it was not so much a URL, it was a QR code. I don't know if you noticed that. And so it feels like URL is no longer the thing, and really people are pushing the QR code as the call to action, which I found is quite interesting. And there was some number out there where people were talking about that specifically, but I just felt I just found it very interesting that we are really moving toward that as a call to action.
And you and I talk about consumer debt a lot here and breaking up payments and things like that on the business side. For the Super Bowl being the biggest gambling event of the year, $185.6 million were gambled in and around the Super Bowl across 182 sports books. So now gambling is legal in almost all 50 states, not quite across the country, but majority of the country. 185.6 million, which was up almost 25% year over year. So that's a train that's not going to stop. The idea or the dynamic of sports is still America's primary thing for entertainment. I mean, there's no two ways about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of entertainment growth and numbers, some good numbers got published this week is the Shopify revenue, and they are pretty interesting. First of all, the GMV, so which is basically the gross merchandise value that all the Shopify ecosystem is actually selling, grew by 20%, which is a pretty astonishing number. It's so the right now it's that GMV is at 235 billion, 235.9 billion. That's pretty big numbers when you consider, and that's not for the US. That's Shopify global. And I can't remember their market share in the e-com space, but it's a pretty sizable it's a pretty sizable market share. So not only they are growing market share, but their own revenue grew quite well. They grew by to a 7.1 billion, which is a 26% growth year over year. So Shopify is definitely this e-com player that is not only growing and growing, in parallel of the market, but is really taking market shares and making a dominating position in this space. So I just found it very interesting. A lot of people are sometimes thinking, oh, like D2C is all about marketplaces. Marketplace is gonna eat the everything, but Shopify is not marketplaces. Shopify is about you creating your own e-com, and this is still there, still vibrant, and it's still something that is growing. So it's pretty exciting from that standpoint.
That's good. D2C is another train that you can't stop. Everyone, you have to be involved in direct response, direct to consumer goods, almost no matter what you do. So the Shopify dynamic growing at I would say in a crazy amount is not surprising to either one of us.
Yeah, but the thing that I found interesting is like there had been this argument that, well, e-commerce is going to consolidate to the main platform, the Amazon and all that. And yes, they are consolidated, but the direct to consumer, where you have your own e-com and you're driving transaction to your own place, is still there, still growing. People are still investing. I talking to other clients the other day that keep saying that we are going to develop mobile app, and so people are still investing on owning that relationship. And this is not, this is in contrast to what's happening in China, for instance, where 90% of the commerce is done on 4 platform. The D2C environment is very strong and relevant here in the US, very different dynamic. So it's pretty, I found it pretty interesting on that standpoint.
Agreed. Versatility, a big part of what you need to worry about. Brick and mortar, e-com, video commerce. How do you get and social media? How do you get your name out to the consumer? And how are you interacting with him or her? Is becoming more and more relevant.
Absolutely.
Now, you mentioned the Shopify thing, but we talked about before the show, Bambuser, their numbers are going the opposite way. So
yeah,
what
absolutely.
did you read about that today?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's unfortunate. So even though the e-com space is growing and we see Shopify as a player on their growth side, Bambuser, which is one of the top 2 dominant player in the Vcommerce space, if you think of it from the perspective of like having your video shoppable and live stream on your own website. Unfortunately for those guys, these and they're kind of reflecting on what's happening in the industry altogether. They are not up; they are actually down 21% year over year. I think when you think about the Vcommerce space, I think we had the pandemic where a lot of people went and live stream was has proven to be very successful and a very useful tool to actually grow. And so when people get out of this, they try to figure out like, how do I do it? They probably tested a bunch of solutions. So 2021, 2022 were really like, what are the solutions out there to make it work? And so there has been a lot of testings, a lot of, I would say, the POC phase. 2023 was this year where, because we were in this sclerosis of thing, right? For there was this kind of a SaaS recession, right? So a lot of company refocus energy on what I think is their core dynamics of what they know and what to do, is like focusing on Amazon, focusing on the retail, focusing on very few dynamics, the email, maybe some SMS, and they were not really continuing exploring. The Vcommerce is still a space that requires exploration. It's not something that you do it once, you're successful. And that I think reflected from last year. I'm very bullish for what's happening 2024. I'm seeing retailer coming saying, hey, we're back in business. We want to do things. Let's try again. And I think innovation is going to come. And so I'm really excited about what's happening. But certainly last year was difficult for many players in this industry. They, unfortunately, I've seen some company failing. But yeah, like let's hope that we're going back to a growth phase.
I agree, and I think education is the paramount dynamic in learning about video commerce and how does your company interact with the dynamic. It's not an easy thing to learn. It's a trained thing. You learn it over time. I don't think you could put all your eggs in one show. If one show doesn't work, then the dynamic doesn't work. It takes time to build an audience, just like anything else. It takes time to learn best practices and how to communicate one-on-one with your consumer, which I think you would think it would be a natural kind of an evolution of the e-commerce dynamic, but there's a little bit of a tweak with video commerce. You have to engage, you have to entertain, and you're presenting product, and it's all wrapped into one kind of dynamic that not everyone knows about. So I think if 2023's numbers and Bamboozer's numbers are any kind of reflection, I just consider it as, if e-commerce continues to grow, then that's a great thing for video commerce. And we, people that work in the video commerce space, have to continue to educate and talk about the dynamic and how vendors and brands can get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, for a lot of folks, I think, during the pandemic, people were using the Zoom and things like that to the Facebook Live to test it out. But the reality is, people don't want to be in Zoom call, and so Zoom settings. So you have to have, the entertainment, all those other elements that make your show interesting, engaging, and all that. So there's this, it's a big learning, as you say, right? It's a big learning curve that you need to go through to get there. So, yeah.
Agreed. Another headline I saw this week was, I follow a lot of CPG brands, a lot of small brands, a lot of grocery brands, a lot of food brands, and Kroger, announced that they're merging with Albertsons, which is a big deal in the grocery space. They're planning to invest $500 million to lower the prices following the close of the deal, because the grocery business and buying groceries for your family keep going up. The average, the groceries are up year over year 1.2%. So across the board, 1.2%. And then on the other side of that, taking your family out to a restaurant, or taking your wife out to a restaurant or a dinner, or your husband to a dinner, is up 5.1%. So food is expensive. The traffic and the transporting goods and all that kind of thing, the fuel, all of that kind of thing plays a major role in all these prices going up. It's hard now to feed a family of 4 or a family of 5 or whatever you have. So the Kroger announcement, working with Albertsons to lower the prices, I think is a positive.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, and I mean it's not. I mean, there's. I'm sure you've seen the latest inflation numbers, right? There were, I think people were expecting to be at 2.9 year over year, and they were actually at 3.1%. People were kind of I think you had some premise before that number, the CPI comment, because I think the when people were looking at the growth of salary and wages, they were higher than anticipated, and so a lot of people are thinking that that has an impact on the inflation. The big problem that's going to generate, I mean, problem, I don't know if it's, I mean, it is somewhat of a problem for folks like us in the tech industry, I will say, but its interest rates are not going to be, you know, people have saying, I've been forecasting interest rate are going to, you know, going to fall by six time. That's, you know, to get to around closer to maybe a four, where they're at 5.5 right now. It sounds like the market is now pricing maybe a a 5 time cut, or maybe a 4 time cut. So you know, interest rates are not going to come down as fast as possible as people expect. On the other side, you know, Jeff Powell, our friend Powell at the Fed, they were kind of clear that they only anticipate free cut for the rate. So I don't know. We'll see where that lands us, but certainly, you know, interest rates are not going to go fast in declining, and so people have to consider that on their cost of inventory, on their cost of customer acquisition, and all that. That's going to have an impact for sure.
One of the last stories I want to touch on is something that you brought up to me about the TikTok shop, talking about fashion and talking
Yeah.
about selling fashion and moving the dynamic, literally moving down up and down the runway. And how does video commerce capture the products? I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. And so TikTok announced recently that they were going to start auto tagging product when you send a video. So let's say they have a database of all the product that are available to sell on TikTok, and now you have a video, and they want to auto tag and recognize, oh, this is a Shure microphone. I have the Shure microphone. Let me tag that so people can actually buy that microphone while they're watching me on this video, which is a fantastic technology. I think a lot of people, especially the one that has tons and tons and tons of UGC, wants to have, because think about a Nike that maybe have, I don't know, like 1,000 video of UGC a month. Like they don't have the time and the bandwidth to actually have someone in the back end trying to manually tag all those products and figure out which product is this, especially if you have a 40,000, 100,000 product catalog. Now, the reality is technology is not there. So auto tagging like this is super difficult. I know. I think Fireworks is working on a solution like that. I think Bamboozer had mentioned about it as well. We at Extremely are also looking at how can we do this, but this is not like a straightforward technology. Super excited that TikTok does that. So what does it come and why is it important? Well, you have this notion of like, hey, you have a video, you can, people maybe wants to buy what I have on the background of my own video, and now they can. But there's also the dynamic with fashion show, and in the fashion show you have the runway, and typically your camera set will be at different position on your runway. And so for people that, I'm pretty sure everyone has seen a runway before, you typically have more than one model on the runway. You typically have one, two, three, and each of those models have different clothing, different accessories, different luxury product on them. And so if you are watching a camera, for the fashion industry and runway, I was talking to a fashion company this morning, like this week, from Italy, and they were saying like, how can I actually being able to tag that wrist or that specific person with the product, because maybe I have three people on the runway, they all have different watches, and so how can I make it easy for my customer to actually understand which product they're actually watching? So that notion of movement into the auto tagging is really fascinating. This is absolutely not available at this time. It's not a technology that they have been able to encounter doing their research. I think it's fascinating. The ultimate question is, and you know that from QVC, uh, it become to be, do we need to adapt the physical environment to a digital infrastructure, right? So meaning that, hey, do you actually want to have a lookalike experience of the physical into a digital environment? In this case, you kind of need that. Or do you actually want a native digital experience? In this case, it's different, right? So, and when I'm thinking of this, is like there was been a lot of conversation about, I think it was on Second Life, like this VR type technology where people were actually, I think it was an auto manufacturer, maybe GMC or something like that, that was actually putting a real video that they mimic the car at perfection on that environment, and people were complaining this is not the place to be. We want a digital environment. We don't want a replica of what we can already see in the physical space. So
I think it's fascinating because, like, I know now with with when you shop for a house, when you can take a virtual tour of the house and you can look at all different aspects, 360 degrees of the home. Now you're not buying everything in the home, but you're walking through the home in a virtual dynamic. I used to one of the most favorite things I used to do when I was a producer at QVC when I work with fashion shows is work with the models, and we called it foreground background. So there'll be a model in the background, there'll be a model in the foreground. The model in the foreground is up front, up front on the stage, and we could dissect her. We could take tight shots of what she's wearing and zoom in and kind of like, head to toe, like whatever she was wearing, we would focus on, and then she would switch
yeah,
foreground, background, and the girl in the background moved to the foreground. We'd do the same thing with her. The girl in the background was just kind of aesthetic, and she looked good, and it was certainly a runway look, but we weren't like focusing on her. We were only focusing on what was in the foreground, the model in the foreground. So now I love that because it showed depth of field, and it was a more interesting shot than what you and I are both looking at each other in our offices, and it's kind of a flat shot. So when you're talking about video commerce, are you suggesting, because the technology is not there, just work in front of a wall of product, even though the product behind you cannot be sold technically, or should we be interacting with more or moving more and interacting with the products and bringing them into the forefront?
I think the reality is, if you want to make a physical experience, which is a runway show where people are walking on the runway, and you want to stream that and make it like a live stream, the complexity become, like you were saying with QVC. You didn't do that. What you did is, like, you had a static person and another static person at different level, and you're moving them so you can have the time to dissect those person.
Right.
But in a dynamic environment, you don't have that time, and so technology is supposed to do that for you, but technology is not there yet. And so the question come to be, do you how in that context, do you create a digital twin of this runway show that is served for your digital audience, so they have a great experience, and they have the time, and you have the technology can really help you make that really cool? Or do you want to have that walk away floor? And in this case, how does the customer really understand what product is where? And so maybe you have to make some choices, like everyone has the same watch, or what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So just to make sure that it's obvious. Okay, one dress from another, it's kind of obvious because they typically have different color, different style. But when you talk about watches or luxury goods like accessories, those are tinier. It's much more complicated to actually being for the user to actually dissociate one from the other from just a walk for.
Yeah, in our world, we call it an upsell. So if we're selling the top, but she's wearing a watch, the watch would be an upsell. So it's a complementary item that matches with the top. And it could be on items recently on, like, items that are also shown. And the customer still has a chance to buy the product, but maybe you didn't see it in that much of a close-up dynamic, enough to make a purchase. Or maybe you did. Maybe you caught a glimpse of it. And from that one glimpse, oh, that's the item number, A12345. I'll order that watch because I liked the watch that she was wearing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a great. I think it's fascinating. I mean, you would think that technology would be up for that kind of thing. It seems very elementary to me, but it's not. So technology is not as advanced as all our minds are still moving.
I think technology could be there for like a pre-recording video, I will say, like some. But when you think about the live stream, the
Yeah.
the basically you have the live, and the video has to be injected and analyzed and tagged and all that, in microseconds. And I mean, everyone has been using ChatGPT and all that. Like when you ask a question to ChatGPT, the answer is not like at the second, right? It takes time to process.
Yeah.
So think of it like now you have to process a video. Now you have to make recognize into a huge database. It All that is time, and maybe by that moment all this happened, well, you're already at the next, you know, the next person on stage,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah. No, it's a great conversation. It's a great conversation.
so do you have any
Uh,
shout out
yeah,
for
before we
today?
go, I was looking at a website that I've been following for years. And I wanted to give them a shout out. It's called the Daily Grommet. It's an online marketplace for inventors and founders and startups, and they sell individual products. That sometimes they use videos, they certainly use imagery, and it's a great dynamic. And the brand was recently sold, and the new owners of the Daily Grommet conducted or added in a voting dynamic. So the customer gets to choose what products they like better, and then if you vote on the product, you help that product or brand go viral. The more votes, the better opportunity for them to get exposure. But you as a consumer, you get a 20% off discount off that product you're buying, and you get free shipping and handling. So it really is a great way for the website and the brands to interact with their consumers to see what kind of traction they can get. From a consumer perspective, you are in total search mode and your exploration mode, like what do they have this week, what's going on, what's the newest latest kind of a thing. So I like the Daily Grommet. I've always liked the website. Their founders were really innovative in creating this. I think back in, I don't know, maybe 2006. It's been around for a while, but I just like the interaction and the dynamic of it. The Daily Grommet. Please check it out.
Yeah, awesome. And on my side, quick shout out to what Laura is doing on our team. She's constantly working and making some really cool podcast and blog and things like that. And one of her initiative has been to work around this UGC alert. I talk about it like recently. So it's a free alert where you can drop your name and your company, and basically once a week we are actually searching for UGC that are not made by yourself, but like made for you, videos, and we send you that into an email. It's free, so if you're interested, sign it up. It's on gethistory.com/UGC alert, and we'll put that also on the description of this podcast. Thanks
Fantastic.
everyone.
We covered so much today, Nicholas.
I know, and bit longer than usual as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very good. All right. Well, we'll see you, for the listener. We'll see you again next Friday. Thanks everyone for being here. If you have any question, comments, as usual, please shoot us a note. We would love to help you, but also like what can we do to make it better? We would love a small rating on the podcast as well. So please put a thumbs up on link on YouTube, or just give us a 5-star review if you feel it's worth for you. We would appreciate that. Thanks everyone, and we'll see you next Friday.
Have a great afternoon, great weekend.